Have you ever noticed how some people seem to enjoy testing your limits? They interrupt you, make comments disguised as jokes, or act as if your time and feelings are optional. And somehow you're expected to smile and pretend nothing happened, right? Well, enough of that. If you're tired of accepting disrespect as something normal, this video is for you. Today, I'll show you direct, and maybe even a little controversial, ways to deal with people who disrespect you without losing control, and most importantly, without sacrificing your dignity. So get ready, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to make it clear where your boundaries are. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. That's the only way this content can reach more people. Now, let's get started. 1. Emotional control. Don't react immediately. There is an almost universal expectation that you should react instantly. When someone provokes, challenges, or disrespects you, responding quickly feels almost instinctive, a way to defend yourself or assert dominance. But who says you have to play by those rules? Responding immediately is risky because that's when emotions take over. Anger, frustration, fear, feelings that cloud your judgment and push you to act without thinking. And that's exactly what the person disrespecting you wants, to see you lose your balance, react emotionally, and regret it later. It's like falling into a carefully placed trap designed to steal your control. When you choose not to react immediately, you rise above the situation. It's a silent but powerful gesture that shows you move at your own pace, not at someone else's. Think of an experienced chess player. They never rush just because their opponent applies pressure. Every move is calculated with precision. By maintaining their own rhythm, they become untouchable. Emotional intelligence is not weakness, it's strategy. It's taking a step back to see the bigger picture before deciding how to act. In that pause, you find the clarity needed to respond wisely, or choose not to respond at all. Because sometimes silence is the strongest message you can send. And if you decide not to respond at all, that may be the strongest move of all. The person provoking you wants a reaction. They want proof that they affected you. By not responding, you show that their attack was so insignificant it wasn't even worth your attention. Be like a solid wall that doesn't move with the wind. Try it. The next time someone tries to throw you off balance, don't react immediately. Let silence speak for you. And if you do respond, do it with purpose and clarity. If it isn't worth your energy, move on without looking back. True power lies in choosing when to react, and more importantly, when not to. Self-control is what keeps you above any provocation. 2. The impact of a silent stare. Let's begin with one of my favorite techniques, and one of the most effective ones, the silent stare. You might be thinking, seriously? Just staring? Yes. Trust me. When someone is openly rude or disrespectful, nothing unsettles them more than a calm, steady, completely indifferent look. Why does it work? Because people who disrespect others are always looking for a reaction. They want you to stutter, get angry, or fire back. They want to drag you into their drama, make you question yourself, or feel smaller. But when you simply look at them without saying a word, without showing emotion, the power dynamic shifts instantly. I know it may sound passive-aggressive, but hear me out. There's something deeply unsettling about someone who refuses to react the way you expect. When you maintain a calm, unwavering gaze, you're saying without words, I'm not playing your game. It's a way of reclaiming control without lifting a finger. And often, that silent stare is the clearest and most powerful no you can give. Let me tell you about a time when this worked almost like magic. I was in a group meeting, and there was a guy who kept interrupting me. You know the type. Loud, overly confident, convinced everyone is there to listen to their wisdom. I tried being polite. I tried speaking up. Nothing worked. Finally, I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and simply looked at him. No blinking, no expression. Just 5 solid seconds of eye contact. You could feel the tension building. Then something interesting happened. Everyone else at the table started looking at him too. Suddenly, he became uncomfortable. He stumbled over his words, looked away, and couldn't maintain his confidence. And from that moment on, he never interrupted me again. Sometimes you show people who you are without saying a single word. The silent stare isn't just a technique, it's a reminder. You don't owe anyone an emotional reaction. You don't have to prove your worth to someone who refuses to see it. You're simply reclaiming your space, your peace, and your dignity. Too often, when someone disrespects us, we feel the need to defend ourselves, explain ourselves, or ignore it to avoid making a scene. But the silent stare isn't aggression, it's composure. It's showing that you're calm, grounded, and fully in control of your emotions. And here's something else. People who constantly disrespect others are rarely confronted. They rarely face consequences. When you look at them calmly and directly, it's like holding up a mirror. Suddenly, they're forced to face their own behavior. You don't need to tell them they're wrong. You're showing them, and most people can't handle what they see. The silent stare doesn't just make the other person back down. It strengthens your own sense of self-worth. Every time you remain still and composed, you're reminding yourself that someone else's words don't have the power to shake you. I used to be the person who nervously laughed at rude comments or felt compelled to explain myself whenever someone questioned my choices. Honestly, it drained me. Learning to simply look, remain silent, and let the moment breathe changed everything. It's a small act of resistance, a quiet but powerful declaration of self-respect. So the next time someone crosses a line, tries to belittle you, or makes you feel small, try the silent stare. Just look at them. Let them feel the weight of your calm. You'll be surprised by how uncomfortable they become and how empowered you feel. The silent stare says, I respect myself too much to be dragged into your negativity. And that's a message worth sending. 3. When silence is the best response. One of the most difficult things to accept is that not every battle deserves your energy. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct is often to defend yourself, explain your position, or prove them wrong. But here's the truth. Not every person deserves access to your attention. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Think about it. Why do people provoke others? Why do they insult, criticize, or try to get under your skin? Because they're looking for engagement. They want your reaction. They want to feel that they have influence over your emotions. The moment you react emotionally, they've already won part of the battle. But when you remain silent, something interesting happens. You remove their reward. You stop feeding the behavior, and suddenly they're left alone with their own negativity. Silence is not weakness. Silence is often a form of wisdom. It's recognizing that some conversations lead nowhere. It's understanding that not everyone is interested in truth, growth, or understanding. Some people simply want conflict, and conflict requires two participants. One of the greatest lessons you'll ever learn is this: you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Imagine someone throwing a ball at you. If you don't catch it, who keeps holding it? They do. The same thing happens with insults, criticism, and disrespect. Not every comment deserves a reply. Not every attack deserves a defense. Sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is simply walking away. There was a time when I believed I had to explain myself to everyone. If someone misunderstood me, I felt obligated to correct them. If someone criticized me unfairly, I felt the need to defend myself. But eventually, I realized something. People who genuinely want to understand you will ask questions. People who only want to judge you have already made up their minds, and no explanation will ever be enough. That realization changed everything. Now, before responding, I ask myself a simple question. Is this conversation likely to create understanding? If the answer is no, I conserve my energy. Because your peace is too valuable to be traded for pointless arguments. And here's the irony. The less you feel the need to defend yourself, the stronger you appear. Confidence doesn't scream. Confidence doesn't beg for approval. Confidence doesn't argue with every opinion. Confidence remains calm because it knows its own worth. Silence sends a message that words often cannot. It says, I know who I am. I don't need your validation. I don't need to convince you. And that kind of certainty is incredibly powerful. Of course, silence doesn't mean becoming passive. It doesn't mean tolerating abuse or allowing people to cross your boundaries endlessly. There are moments when speaking up is necessary. But even then, speak from a place of clarity, not emotional chaos. Respond because it aligns with your values, not because someone pushed your buttons. The strongest people are not those who react the fastest. They're the ones who know exactly when to speak and when to stay silent. Because they understand something most people never learn. Your energy is limited. Your attention is valuable, and not everyone deserves access to either. 4. Stop explaining yourself to everyone. One of the fastest ways to lose your peace is trying to make everyone understand you. Many people spend years explaining their choices, defending their decisions, and seeking approval from people who were never interested in understanding them in the first place. Think about it. How much energy have you wasted trying to justify your goals, your lifestyle, your boundaries, or your dreams? You explain yourself. They disagree. You explain yourself again. They still disagree. And suddenly you're trapped in a cycle where you're constantly defending a life that belongs to you. The Stoics understood something powerful. You are not responsible for controlling other people's opinions. You are only responsible for your actions. The moment you realize this, life becomes lighter. You stop chasing approval. You stop fearing criticism. You stop feeling obligated to prove your worth. And something incredible happens. You become free. Because the truth is, no matter what you do, someone will disagree. Someone will judge. Someone will misunderstand. Someone will criticize. That's part of life. The question is, will you allow their opinion to control your actions? Or will you continue moving forward anyway? Strong people don't spend their lives explaining themselves. They spend their lives building themselves. And eventually, their results speak louder than any argument ever could. 5. Respect yourself. enough to walk away. One of the hardest lessons in life is learning when to leave. Whether it's a friendship, a relationship, a workplace, or a conversation. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. Not because you're weak, not because you've given up, but because you finally realized your value. Many people stay in situations that continuously drain them because they fear losing something. They fear being alone. They fear starting over. They fear disappointing others. But what they fail to realize is that staying in the wrong place is often more damaging than leaving. Every day you remain where you are constantly disrespected, you send yourself a message. A message that says, maybe this is what I deserve. And that belief slowly destroys your confidence. Self-respect begins when you refuse to tolerate what damages your spirit. It begins when you decide that peace is more important than approval, that growth is more important than comfort, that dignity is more important than attachment. Walking away doesn't mean you hate someone. It doesn't mean you're angry. Sometimes it simply means you've chosen yourself, and that decision can change your entire life. 6. Become difficult to manipulate. Manipulative people look for predictable reactions. They study your emotions. They learn your insecurities. They observe your habits. And then they use them against you. The good news? The moment you become emotionally disciplined, manipulation becomes much harder. When someone knows exactly how you'll react, they can control the situation. But when you remain calm, patient, and unpredictable, they lose their advantage. This doesn't mean becoming cold. It means becoming aware. Aware of your emotions. Aware of your triggers. Aware of the situations that cause you to lose control. The Stoics believed that true strength wasn't controlling others. It was controlling yourself. Because when you control yourself, nobody else can. That's why emotional discipline is such a powerful form of protection. It creates distance between what happens to you and how you respond. And inside that space, you find freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to think. Freedom to act according to your values instead of your impulses. The stronger your self-control becomes, the less power manipulative people have over your life. 7. Let your life speak for you. One of the greatest mistakes people make is trying to win every argument, trying to prove every point, trying to convince every critic. But here's something worth remembering. People rarely remember your explanations. They remember your results. The person who doubted your discipline notices your transformation. The person who mocked your goals notices your success. The person who underestimated you notices your growth, not because you argued, but because you kept going. Your life is your strongest message, not your words, not your promises, not your intentions, your actions. That's why the Stoics focus so heavily on character, because character is visible. You can't fake it forever. Eventually, who you are becomes impossible to hide. So instead of wasting your energy proving yourself, invest that energy into becoming yourself. Work in silence. Grow in silence. Build in silence. And let your results create the noise. At the end of the day, disrespect only has power if you allow it to enter your mind. You cannot control how people treat you. You cannot control what they say. You cannot control what they think, but you can control your response. You can control your attitude. You can control your standards. And sometimes that's more than enough. Remember, not every insult deserves a reaction. Not every critic deserves an answer. Not every battle deserves your energy. Protect your peace. Protect your focus. Protect your self-respect. Because once you truly understand your value, the opinions of disrespectful people become nothing more than background noise. And that's when you become unstoppable. If you're still here, you're already different from most people. While others scroll endlessly, you're investing time in becoming wiser, stronger, and more disciplined. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider joining this community. Most people who watch these videos aren't subscribed, but a simple click helps this channel continue creating content that inspires growth and self-mastery. Leave a like if this message spoke to you, and let me know in the comments which lesson impacted you the most. Thank you for watching. Remember, peace comes from within, strength is built daily, and the life you want begins with the choices you make today.